Hey guys, it's Jonathan from Stubmasters Reviews, and today I'm here again to bring you guys a very special video. Now, as you all know, Ghost in the Shell released this last weekend, and I was really excited for it, and I really enjoyed the film. And matter of fact, I just posted a review for it. I thought that it was a very good sci-fi film that had a beautifully realized world, a really good score, and just a very thought-provoking premise. And that premise was made back in 1995 with its first adaptation from the Japanese anime comic Ghost in the Shell, and that is a classic film, and that influenced a lot of science fiction action movies, such as The Matrix. And I also heard that it had a little bit to do with inspiring Dark City by Alex Proyas as well, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Anyways, I'm making this video today because, yet again, this kind of happened earlier with the film called Kong Skull Island this year, where we felt that it was really getting a lot of criticism that it didn't deserve, because that film was actually quite enjoyable. And today is I'm going to go and cover a very similar topic, because Ghost in the Shell, I felt, was getting a lot of criticism from the get-go. People were automatically jumping at the gun to hate this movie because of cultural appropriation. Why is Scarlett Johansson playing a Japanese character? Why is this an American remake? Why are you remaking Ghost in the Shell? It's already perfect. Why does that movie need to be made? All these different people, all these different fans seem very upset with it. And I think that people went into this movie with a predisposition not to like it. And unfortunately, you could see that at the box office and the critical reception. I think right now it has a 46% in Rotten Tomatoes. It only made about $19 million in the US this opening weekend, which is a very poor opening considering the production costs. I think reached up to $110 million, and at the end of the day, that's not counting marketing either. So unless this does better when it opens in Japan and China, Paramount could be looking at, and Paramount and DreamWorks may be looking at, a significant loss here. So I'm going to go ahead and touch upon some of the reasons why the critics are getting Ghost in the Shell wrong. I have some note points here because I have a lot to talk about today. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the things that I liked about the film. Just a brief recap, kind of like my review. Just very brief because I already did a review, just to kind of let you guys know what I enjoyed about the film. The city in this movie basically looks like Tokyo mixed with Blade Runner, which is super cool because everything is really big, it's cool, the city feels lived in, it's beautiful. It almost looks like a super futuristic New York City, which I really dug. Also, this movie has a lot of likable characters. All the characters were very well written, especially Bato, which is the Major's main companion in the film, and he's great. He's the source of comedic relief, and he was just a really good addition, as well as the other cast members. Another thing I really enjoyed about this movie was Kuze. Kuze was the film's main villain, and he was really cool because he actually had a solid motive. He wasn't just there to be a really big bad guy. For the first half, you think that that's what they're going for, that he's just going to be this terrorist dude. But when you actually see his motivation towards the halfway point of the film, you're like, wow, this guy might actually have a point. And those are the best kinds of villains, the ones where you can actually see their point, kind of get behind their cause if you twist your thoughts just in the right way, which luckily I did. The first argument against this film I want to address is the fact that people are calling it generic. And I want to say, hold up for a second. Because Ghost in the Shell was one of the most influential pieces of anime ever written. It inspired The Matrix heavily and various other science fiction films. Just because something like The Matrix took a lot of ideas from the source material and then displayed it first doesn't necessarily mean that the ideas came from that first. So when the Ghost in the Shell actually finally gets its live action release in 2017, people might view it as generic because they've seen it before, when the matter of fact is the films that came prior actually stole the ideas from this source material, and this film is just trying to be faithful to its source material, and I don't think being faithful to anything is generic. The second argument against this film I want to address is the fact that people are complaining that it's a form of cultural appropriation. Alright, sure, Scarlett Johansson's white, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and look at this from an artistic point of view, and I'm also going to look at this from a practical point of view. Let's go look at it from the practical point of view first. I'm just going to be completely honest. There are not a lot of Japanese actors in Hollywood that are easily recognizable. And when you have a $110 million project, you want to put a face on the film that people are actually going to recognize and like, oh, I like that actor, I'm going to go pay to see them. The reality is there's not a whole lot of Japanese actors in Hollywood that are really household names. And when you have something like that happen, it's very difficult for a studio to put a ton of money behind someone who's not really noticeable as a star. And that's just how the business works. It's not any form of cultural appropriation. It's just how Hollywood works, and it's sad because that's how a lot of indie films get overlooked. Now, I'm also going to look at this from an artistic point of view, and this is where I'm going to go and I'm going to get into some spoilers here. The big issue I have when people say that this movie is culturally appropriating things is because if you actually watch the film, you know that that's not true. And that's because in the third act of this film, you've realized that Scarlett Johansson was actually a Japanese woman, and that her brain was taken from a Japanese woman and then put into a synthetic cybernetic body, which was Scarlett Johansson. And the reason why that's relevant was because the company in the film, it seemed like it was owned by an American guy, and he had his own Western capitalist inspirations and motives in the film. So in other words, in my opinion, that was kind of an artistic allusion to how you have capitalist corporations that come into some of these foreign countries and then overtake their culture and then impress their own stuff on it through marketing campaigns and products, similar to how Ghost in the Shell did. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that not a lot of people picked up on. Alright, and the last issue I want to go ahead and address in this film is that some people are calling it confusing and boring. Alright guys, in a world where we have big franchise blockbusters, things like The Avengers, or heck, even Kong Skull Island, when audiences are treated to these things very often, they get used to having information spoon-fed to them, either through exposition or word crawls on a screen. And this movie does have like one 1-minute screen crawl to kind of give you a basis to what's going on. But other than that, it really doesn't spoon feed you information. As a matter of fact, it actually explains how this world works and how the technology works and just how the society functions as a whole through character interactions, which is really cool. There's one scene in particular where they talk about mind diving, or when you jump into someone's mind through this technological link and you can go in and just see their memories and you can get information that way. And they didn't exactly explain how it worked, but when they actually went to do such function, they explained it as it went along, and I thought that was a really cool way of storytelling, and that's how most of the things happen in this film. So I think a lot of people aren't getting the film because they simply aren't paying attention to it, because this film does require you to pay attention. There's a lot of different moving parts, and I'm not going to criticize a movie because it's ambitious, because Ghost in the Shell is ambitious, and it has a lot of really good ideas that it wants to give to the viewer. When people called it boring, it really just kind of spawned out of the confusion idea that I'm not getting any of this, so I'm just going to turn off my brain. I don't really care if they're talking about it. I don't really care if they're actually explaining to me what's going on. Anywho guys, I just thought Ghost in the Shell was actually a really good science fiction movie. We haven't seen anything like it in quite a while, and even though it feels kind of familiar because it's based off the direct source material that other films borrowed from in previous decades, I still don't think that that's a reason to criticize it. It was a faithful adaptation. It was a very good adaptation. It had an excellent direction. It was a beautifully shot movie. All the actors did a great job. The script was pretty sharp for the most part. It was just overall a really good science fiction film. And I'm really sad that it didn't do well at the box office. I hope that hopefully people like me can give this movie a word of mouth, so if it doesn't do well in the box office now, that it might get a really good home media following, so we can get another sequel, because I'm just really excited to see what else this world can bring. And I don't think that box office numbers should be the fate of this film. So guys, just let us know how you thought of this discussion video. We have these more now because we like to express our thoughts on certain issues and sometimes controversial stuff that we disagree with people on. And that's okay, it's a democracy, and we love that you guys watch this stuff. Anyways guys, I'm Jonathan from Stubmasters Reviews. Stay tuned this week to get some other cool videos. Have a great evening.